Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Pleasure to have you on board our third session of the day, PV rooftop and storage. The session will give you an up-to-date insight into international market developments for PV rooftop combined with behind-the-meter storage systems and potential market developments in India. Experts from India and Germany will provide information on the current status and new developments. Will PV plus storage replace diesel gensets entirely in India within the next 5 years? Ladies and gentlemen, may I please invite Dr. Nicole Glenman from German Ministry for Economic Affairs for her opening address. Dr. Nicole, please.
Thank you, Mr. Amit, for the kind introduction and your warm welcome. On behalf of the government of Germany, I'm honored to welcome you here at the session on PV rooftop and storage at this second REI E-Expo in the framework of the Indo-German Energy Day. There's no doubt that storage is a huge enabler for the energy transition worldwide. In Germany, we have decided to shut down nuclear and coal-fired power plants within the next 2 decades. By 2050, Germany aims to become greenhouse gas neutral. And this is in line with our commitment with the Paris Agreement. And Corona has not altered this plan. We will, on this road towards carbon neutrality, renewable energies and CO2 neutral storage applications will play a key and indispensable role. Coal-fired power plant generation shall end by 2038, but possibly earlier. All our nuclear power plants will already be shut down by the end of 2022. As our Deputy Director General Energy said in her welcome remarks this morning, this year more than 50% of Germany's electricity consumption has already come from renewable energy sources. The German people benefit directly from the energy transition and have become part of it. You can even say they directly participate in the renewables business. More than 40% of all solar panels installed in Germany are mounted on the roof of private houses or on facilities belonging to farmers. More than 50% of newly installed PV rooftop systems in Germany already come with a battery, a huge market, which also helps to stabilize the grid of the whole country. To get to know more about this market and the opportunities that might already exist in the Indian market, the government of Germany and the government of India have agreed to look deeper into this topic. And this is why we are here today. I'm looking forward to today's insights from Germany and also and especially from India. These insights might inspire further activities that promote this kind of technologies in our countries. With this, I would like to hand over to our first speaker, Mr. Winter. He will give us an overview to set the scene for further presentations and discussions. Thank you so much.
Yeah, namaskar everyone. Thank you very much. Dr. Nicole Glaneman will directly jump into the topic. I think you can see the screen. I will just quickly go through the worldwide developments, mainly focusing on the battery part. As an activity, as Dr. Nicole Glaneman said, which has been decided to be promoted by both of our governments, the federal government of Germany and the government of India. I'll then just point out some drivers, which I think Vinay Rustagi will then also point out for the Indian market, and maybe also give some ideas on where the market could head towards in India. Just to get familiar a little bit with the topic behind the meter, what does it mean? I mean, we have a meter and we just consume the power with any load that can be residential load or commercial or industrial load. We can put some solar on our roof and we can use this for self-consumption, or we can feed this into the grid. But we could also deploy a battery and then just use this electricity for the load without consuming it from the grid. And certainly, and that is where lots of music is playing right now internationally, this battery power can also be used for interaction with the grid in terms of ancillary services and more. And definitely this battery could also be in electric car. In terms of worldwide development, these are the latest numbers from Bloomberg so far. The market is divided into around 45% storage being deployed in the utility scale market, 60%, and in the residential and commercial, so that would be behind the meter market, around 45%. You see a decrease in 2019 in terms of storage development, but this is mainly because of the developments in the Republic of Korea due to some fire issues, actually. Else you see that there is a steep increase in Japan, Germany, China, Australia, but also United States driving the market. These numbers here are for global behind the meter deployments only. So we're talking about around 1.2 gigawatts of capacity being installed in, or 1.1 gigawatt of capacity installed in 2019. US, as I mentioned, the steep increase also expected for 2020. So they are talking about 50,000 residential storage systems, doubling the market. In Japan, the average system size is more of 7 kilowatt hours due to the fact that most of these systems are being deployed in the residential market. A small fraction, small share of commercial deployment in Japan. In Germany, we also see a steep increase in the deployment of mainly residential systems. So far, around 180, maybe by now more than 200,000 systems have been installed already. It is said that around 50 to 60% of all solar rooftops being installed in Germany actually already come with a storage system, also due to the fact that the prices are decreasing significantly per kilowatt hour. What are the drivers? Yeah, so one main driver is definitely cost. System costs are coming down, performance is coming up. We are talking about 1,000 cycles and more. And at the end, this means electricity bill savings. And as you might be well aware, in many European countries, the tariffs for the residential sector are the highest. So that is where these systems are being deployed. Whether in India, it would be more the commercial and industrial sector, which Vinay Rustagi from Bridge to India might dig deeper into later on. Second is feed-in regulations are being reversed in many countries. So for more new PV connections, there might be also no feed-in anymore, or the feed-in tariff gets lower and lower. So it does actually make sense to self-consume the electricity produced by solar. Just as an example, for example, the feed-in tariff development in the UK, you see it's coming significantly down. So actually, it does not make sense to generate at a high cost PV power to feed it into the grid. So definitely, there's a huge trend for self-consumption. No, these tariffs remain the same for I guess 20 years. But if you start with the solar system in 2016, 17, 18, you would not that much be interested in opting for feed-in. You would go for self-consumption. No, the third driver definitely still subsidies. But decreasing. For example, in Germany, the KfW Development Bank had supported these systems in the past, but as per the data of KfW and Bloomberg, the subsidy actually decreased significantly, and in 2019 there's no more grants from KfW. So one could not say that this business in Germany is flying because there are subsidies. There is still special loans for storage, state-specific subsidies continue, but mainly people in Germany are deploying these systems out of economical reasons and without any subsidies, plus for being independent. So that is a huge driver. Maybe also in times of COVID increasing, to just like generate your own electricity and to just be independent. In the US, a big driver were like the bushfire shutdowns in California. In India, it might be more of a backup solution. And yes, once you have such a system deployed, you know your power price for the next 20 years. No? Players, just to give a small glimpse, who are like the biggest players in behind the meter technology. Lots of German names to be seen here. I think Warta is well known. Sonnen now being bought by Shell, one of the most exciting leaders in this technology. IBC Solar, E3 DC, Fluence also active here in India for larger scale systems. Yeah, I think Tesla is very well known. SMA, also a German company. Yeah, just to get an insight, just an example for a typical systems. For example, the company Sonnen, they have already more than 50,000 residential systems behind the meter installed already. A typical system which they now offer already has 8 kilowatt, and they can go up to 72 kilowatt. 8 kilowatt, that would be enough to power maybe 5 ACs in full load in India. And 33 kilowatt, that means hours, that means 4 hours of deployment already. They use lithium iron cells and guarantee a full warranty for 10 years, and speak about cycles of more than 10,000. Dr. Gaebler also on the panel today. He will dig deeper into a system customized for the Indian market, the PV port. So looking forward to this. Business models, yeah, they depend on the drivers, but yeah, as I just said, no, increased self-consumption would be one business model, independence, demand charge reduction, backup power. But what we see is that there is more and more service providers, especially with unbundling of discoms, which actually use the assets of storage for frequency regulation and other ancillary services. And Sonnen is one of these companies doing so. So they actually bundle virtually these kind of storage systems deployed in different houses and homes, and then act as a large provider in the megawatt scale, at least, at the electricity exchange. So they are able to charge these batteries during solar times, and maybe there is enough electricity left to be traded at the electricity exchange. I think we would have enough time, so I can just show you, give you an idea on how this looks like. So at the globe.sonnen.de, you would be able to actually look into almost all systems deployed by the company, and they're virtually connected. And in each country where this company Sonnen is able to act as an electricity provider, or let's say discom, they are able to trade the electricity. So this would be each blue dot means one system already installed. So this is Australia. Then we can see actually Europe, Germany, where they come from. No, you see, so huge deployment of these systems already. Italy, now starting in Spain also, UK, spreading toward the northern countries, and then US, I think you can see here. I think in West Coast, more and more systems being installed, and you can actually click on each system and get more information about the size. I have also spotted the first dots in India, so if you're interested, just visit this page. And with this, I'm almost coming to the end. Let me just swap it again into the right presentation mode. One company you have heard of, Tesla. I mean, that's exciting, no? They now have a utility license, so they're doing the same thing. And it's not only Sonnen, it's not only Tesla, it's the big companies looking into this business. So if a company like Shell is working on this, then this means something. But yes, what would be the requirements for India? So RWPP means residential virtual power plants. That requires further deregulation in any country which would like to deploy such systems. For example, in Berlin, I think I have the possibility, Dr. Glanemann, you're living in Germany, you can actually choose between, I think, 200 or 300 electricity providers. So there's always one company in charge of the distribution grid, as per license for 10, 20 years. But where the electricity comes from, you can choose. In Germany, in average, we talk about 110 electricity providers in each geographical point. Around 65% of the electricity is traded at the electricity exchange. We even have unbundled the meter business. So I can say, okay, I want the electricity to come from a company which only sells 100% green power, but I want the meter to be maintained by another company, which allows me lots of games with my app on the mobile phone and so on. I can even give contracts to behind the meter companies which maintain my solar system or the battery itself. No. To show to which extent this goes even further, our Ministry of Power in Germany is actually supporting pilots where neighbors trade electricity directly amongst each other. Or as in the Netherlands, this is already the case. You can go on vendebrand.nl and you can actually say, I like this family with the dog, and they have invested in their windmills, and I'm willing to buy the power from this family because I like their dog. It's possible. It's possible today in Europe. This is an extreme example of deregulation, but it makes us think to what is already possible. There's other examples. I just put the links here to get inspired. And same applies to how to use your car as a storage device. No, you can already install devices like, for example, the SmartFox Energy Manager, and you're able to bring the electricity from somewhere else to your house through the car. And what, for example, the Mobility House has shown is that if you only discharge or charge, vary about the 10% plus and minus at a rate of 50%, so the battery is 50% charged, and you discharge 10% or you charge it 10% up to 60%, that this nearly has no effect on the lifetime of the battery. And it's an important finding, no? Because people say, yeah, okay, vehicle to grid will not come because who will spare his car battery and lose precious cycles on this exercise. But there is ranges where batteries actually do not get harmed that much. And with this, I will actually end and then hand over to Vinay Rustagi. In India, where do we see high potential? In the residential sector, definitely the tariff is lower compared to industrial and commercial. So industrial and commercial might be more interesting. But any guess on how many gigawatts of diesel gensets are deployed in India for our international visitors? 120 gigawatt is the last number we got. And this is something amazing, which is very hard to believe from a European or a US perspective. That would mean that around 25% of the capacity installed in the country, no, or even more, including captive, is backup power, no, and definitely at one point of time this might be replaced by other solutions and technologies. The question is when and how to actually create a legal framework to make this possible. And yes, as I already said, if we see about the tariffs, which states maybe to tackle first. So in India, we have different tariffs for different segments, not for industry, for residential and commercial. And these are, let's say, the highest tariffs of all. No, so we have chosen here an example of 3 states and each segment where the tariff would be highest. So let's say it would be interesting to start with commercial customers in Maharashtra because they're just paying the highest price for electricity. And maybe one more slide, which always excites all international investors looking into India. This is the daily generation from solar in 2019. There is developers which say, yeah, in India, we have 300 days of sunshine of solar. It's not true. It's 365 days of intense electricity generation by solar. If you compare this to Germany, we have in January, February, we have actually not that much solar generation. And then the same applies to the winter months, no? So in November, December. So we actually have to talk about long-term storage. But India only, let's say, only needs to talk about short-term storage, because they can directly store the sun from the day to the night where the peak demand might occur, and that's it. So we're talking about 3, 4 hours, 5-hour storage. Then the energy transition in India is solved. And that actually makes us confident that India has a very high chance to actually even surpass Germany in terms of the energy transition when it comes to higher penetration of renewables, because you just do not need actually long-term storage. You can go with short-term storage. And yesterday we have actually checked the last 365 days of actual solar generation from the website from CEA, which now gives the solar generation, exact solar generation, daily generation profile for each day. And thank you to my colleague Madhu, who actually put together all these numbers. So this is from August till July 2020. And you see again, there is not one single day where one would say solar generation in India would have not been sufficient. So this is amazing news and a huge enabler for storage applications, smaller storage applications also in India. And yeah, Vinay will talk about the solar rooftop development. Just one impression of what it could look like in the residential sector. This is one of my favorite photos, just to know that in India we are using mainly flat rooftops and glass technology being deployed, maybe with an even economic mounting structure here, a wooden structure where the light can even go through and makes life on the terrace even pleasant in summer months, and generating electricity. And if you paint the floor white, you might even increase the solar generation by the albedo effect with the reflection from below. So that could be one vision for India. And with this, I will close. Thank you very much. Shall I directly pass to Vinay to give us your perspective, please, on the development for India? I know I'm like always one of the persons a little bit more excited on what's possible, and maybe it is, but more medium and long term. I think you'll give us an insight on the short-term developments of the solar rooftop market, and give some insights to which extent storage deployment already may make sense. Please, Vinay.
I hope everybody can hear me. Thank you, Tobias, and thank you, IGEF and Informa for inviting me to this session. I'm really delighted to be here. And I'm going to be talking about the Indian rooftop solar and the storage market as it stands today, including the prospects and the challenges and so on. So I must say, Tobias, I think your presentation was fantastic. I think that is it almost looks like a utopian dream for the Indian consumer. I think this is where we would want to be maybe in the next 10 to 15 years. I think realistically, I think it is going to take that long. Also,
five, please.
And I think what was interesting was that I think the consumer aspirations and the needs and the drivers are very much the same. But of course, there is a very different behavior and a response to different tariff structures, different power supply situation on the ground, and the different viability factors. So I will now share my screen, and I hope you can all see it.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Amit. So just a very, very quick introduction. I think most of you already know that we are a consulting and research company specializing in the renewable sector. I guess two things worth highlighting. One, we take great pride in being independent and analytical. So we don't like to sugarcoat things, and we like kind of take a very realistic view and not try to sugarcoat or positively dress anything. The second thing is, because we are 100% focused on renewable energy, we always try and bring strong domain expertise and sector insights into all the work that we do. COVID has been actually good to us in a way so far. We've had some very high quality work on behalf of various, private equity investors, developers, and equipment suppliers. And I think we continue to be very, very busy, particularly on rooftop solar and distributed renewable markets. So I hope that I can share some of our insights with all of you today. Just a very quick introduction to India RE Navigator, which is our online portal for the sector. You get 24/7 access to all the key trends in the market, including tenders, projects, policies, etc. So go there and have a look, and I hope you will find it useful. In my presentation, you will find that there's much more emphasis on rooftop solar and much less so for storage. And I think that is the nature of this market. Rooftop solar really is now a reasonably mature market in India. The market was kind of flying away, growing almost 80 to 100% year on year until about start of 2019. And since then, unfortunately, we've seen a few challenges, market slowing down. Last year, we saw the volumes came down by about 25%. And this year, of course, the last quarter in particular has been really bad. We expect less than 100 megawatts of new installations in the April to June quarter. And I will talk about impact of COVID later on in the presentation. I think Tobias talked about how the tariff structures in Germany and other countries are affecting the shape of the market over there. I think in India, it's very much the same situation. This slide shows how tariffs are determined on the basis of customer segment, and the CNI consumers pay the highest tariff, and in turn they subsidize the agricultural and the domestic consumers. And that is what is driving the growth in the rooftop solar and the storage markets. The highest tariff paying customers are the ones who find financial savings from rooftop solar more attractive, as the cost of rooftop solar for these customers is about 4 rupees, so they can stand to make very attractive savings. For the residential and the agricultural customers, there are almost no savings or very little savings, barring some exceptions. So these markets are obviously much more slow in growing. This slide shows how the rooftop solar market is very heavily dominated by the private CNI customers, and the reasons. First reason, they want cheaper power. They want to reduce the cost of power to stay competitive, to improve their profitability, to stay ahead of the competition. The second and a big driver for them, equally big driver for them, is reduction in carbon emissions. Many of the large CNI consumers, both because of their internal initiatives as well as some external compulsions, for example, renewable power obligations, they are keen to reduce their carbon emissions and hence improve the renewable energy penetration. And rooftop solar is really the first port of call for most consumers when it comes to try and buying renewable power on their own. So that's become very popular with CNI customers. Government customers, there's a huge push from the government for all government departments to adopt rooftop solar, but the market there's not been a smooth sailing for the market. Multiple reasons. Companies have found it very difficult to participate in the tenders, which tend to be very aggressive. Many tenders, there have been some conditions imposed around trying to match L1 bids, which the market has not found to be viable. And then, of course, barring some large-scale installations, the average size of installations in the government sector has been pretty small, at about 40 to 50 or less than 100 kilowatts anyway. And I think those kinds of installations people have found slightly more difficult to implement and to scale up over a period of time. The residential market is still roughly about 200 megawatts a year. Very small, largely because of their low residential grid tariffs. Now, we were expecting 2020 to be a breakaway year for residential rooftop solar. Reason being, one, the government has been proposing to give subsidies of 20 to 40% for residential systems when subsidies have been withdrawn for all the other consumers. Second, of course, the costs of these systems have come down very significantly because of costs in module prices, BOS, and other cost parameters. But then I think those kinds of benefits and opportunities have been somewhat eroded by other factors, like, for example, safeguard duty has come in, GST has increased the costs, financing has been a challenge. So again, I'll come to that a little bit later. The really good news, in addition to the fact that the most CNI consumers are very keen to adopt rooftop solar, is that now we have a very mature and thriving ecosystem comprising both the installers, the contractors on one hand, and the financiers on the other hand, in particular equity investors. So there is a lot of equity investment available today for the OPEX business model, whereby third-party investors come and own the assets and supply power to the CNI consumers under a PPA framework. And as you can see in this chart, there are some very large ticket IPPs, private equity investors, even sovereign wealth funds who have jumped into the CNI renewable market. Shell and Petronas, two of the world's biggest oil and gas companies, are active players. So really, I think for the large CNI consumers, it is very easy today to not only build a rooftop solar system, but to try and get financing from third-party investors and lenders. Coming to the challenges, I think, let me just try and explain this slide. So this is like we have consumer size on the y-axis and the financial strength of consumers on the x-axis. So most of the industry today is really focused on large blue chip customers, offering them, large individual installation sizes, good bankability for the PPAs. And this is now becoming the hotly contested area of the market, very, very competitive, more than 10 to 12 large developers playing active in this market. But the rest of the market, all this market here is pretty much, I would say, still underdeveloped and undercatered to. The reason, I think, twofold. One, financially, most developers are still not willing to finance any client who's less than A-rated or who is installation size where it is less than 200 kilowatts. So the RESCO solutions are not available for these smaller customers. Even debt financing is a bit of a challenge with most NBFCs and banks demanding collateral, cost of debt financing being as high as 13, 14, or even as high as 16 to 18%. And that, of course, is not seen as viable by the consumers. The second challenge facing the rest of this market is that particularly the MSME customers, they feel that they're not catered to by them, by the industry, and they find it difficult to make the choices and the informed choices about the vendors, equipment, selection, configuration of the system, etc., etc. And I think they really need a little bit of a helping hand in trying to make the best possible choice for them on business model, financing, grid connectivity, etc. I think net metering policy framework, we have net metering or grid, gross metering policies in place now across most of the country. The problem is that the policy landscape is becoming more and more unpredictable because the DISCOMs are pushing for withdrawal of free net metering. We've already seen some of the largest states, including Uttar Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, Gujarat, and Karnataka, are trying to limit net metering policies for C&I consumers. Some states are even trying to impose charges for installation of rooftop solar systems. And that kind of uncertainty is a major risk factor for this market. I think, Maharashtra is an interesting case where the Maharashtra DISCOM was plugging for same kinds of changes, i.e. withdrawal of net metering, levy of more charges, but the Maharashtra regulator has provided a really interesting decision, which can hopefully pave the way for more such policy across the country. One, Maharashtra regulator has said that net metering has to be allowed for all the consumers. They have said that free banking is not viable for the DISCOM, so they've imposed some banking charges, which I think all parties are happy with. And finally, they've said that grid charges for net metering connectivity can be levied, but only if the rooftop solar capacity on an aggregate basis crosses the 2 gigawatt threshold. In other words, what they're saying is that so long as the market is small, it still needs to be nurtured and it still needs to be paid for and subsidized by the state and the DISCOMs, and hence no grid charges should be levied. And I think that is really a middle of the road solution, which should keep both DISCOMs, consumers and consumers happy, and hopefully paves the way for policy clarity across most of the country. The other major issue that we see, which is going to become a bigger challenge going forward, is this issue around import duties. Now, there is, as most of us know, the government has been planning to, jack up import duties and trying to promote Make in India policy. The consequence, of course, is that as these C&I or private installations have got no change in law protection, the cost increases are directly fed on passed on to the investors and the consumers, and not having the clarity in terms of what duty is going to come for how much period of time is a major risk factor, and that is kind of slowing down the market right now. I talked about the residential market, how small it is, and how MNRE has been trying to support this market. So MNRE announced a 4,000 megawatt scheme for installation by March 2022, planning to provide 20 to 40% subsidy for residential systems. And now, in effect, what has happened is that the states have issued various tenders and schemes aggregating to about 1,000 megawatts, but less than 1/4 of that has been actually allocated to the industry. And then MNRE has separately set aside funds for, as of date, only 471 megawatts. So there is a huge gap between obviously what the government has planned and the real development on the ground. Now that slow disbursement of funds, together with all the uncertainty because of COVID, still means, in our view, that residential market is still some time away from realizing its potential and will continue to struggle at about 200 to 250 megawatt levels per annum for the next 2 years or so. Coming to impact of COVID, I think it's very difficult to know how this is going to play out in the end. But I think for the time being, we can only say that power demand in the country is obviously down for the year. More importantly, it is down by 10% more in the CNI segment. Discoms have been hit very, very badly. We expect Discom losses to increase by 3 or 4 times this year in comparison to last year. Module costs have fallen very substantially, which is a plus point, but then that's been, some of that cost reduction has been offset by increases in installation costs and duties and other factors. So a little bit of a mixed story, but then financing environment has become more challenging. So on the whole, I would say COVID impact has been negative, unsurprisingly. Our on the ground checks basically show that there is a huge interest in the market and the customers are keen than ever to adopt rooftop solar systems. But I think financing and policy challenges still mean that the growth of the market is going to be slow and the recovery is going to be extended over a long period of time. Very quickly, without taking too much time, I will come to storage. The behind the meter storage market in India is not new. I think particularly in residential installations and some of the critical industrial applications, off-grid activity has been quite high, particularly because power supply on the grid has not been very reliable. But there is talk about a huge market potential. IESA and the Smart Grid Forum have basically said in a report completed on behalf of the government that behind the meter storage potential is as much as 800 gigawatt hours by 2032, which I think is very wildly optimistic actually. Our estimate would be 1/4 or a little bit less than that. Having said that, I think the prospects are obviously very, very positive in not just power backup, but there are new business models which are becoming viable and increasingly attractive financially as we progress over time. Reduction in diesel usage, optimal use of rooftop solar systems, particularly as net metering is phased out. Peak shaving, because many customers have to pay a very high fixed charge once they move their grid connection voltage levels. So they can actually try to reduce their connected load by using batteries smartly and in the process reducing their fixed costs. Power factor correction, balancing and ancillary services. Now some of these opportunities are not available today because of the market design and the regulatory design, but we do expect that over a period of time, these applications will open up, hoping to realize the potential of this market. Now, there are various factors holding back the behind the meter market. The first and the most obvious one is the high cost. Cost of installed battery systems today is believed to be north of $400 per kilowatt. There is a very wide sense that until that cost falls by another 40 to 50%, it is not going to be viable. Very interestingly, I was speaking to a few installers and system integrators last couple of days, and what they said to me was this: that there's a big problem with availability of strong bankable suppliers. And what they mean by that is that there is a little bit of a chicken and egg situation here. Because the market is not there in terms of volumes and scale, all the large installers, the kind that Tobias talked about in terms of Narada and Tesla and Fluence, etc., they're all basically keen only on the large scale installations. They're not able to justify spending time on a half a megawatt hour kind of installation because the cost of that installation is very, very high. So they are interested in large installations, which means that the bankable and proven suppliers in the small scale retail applications are actually almost non-existent. And because of that, the banks are not keen to provide financing for storage systems. So there is a little bit of a chicken and egg situation there, which will sort itself out. But again, I think it will take a little bit of a time before we do that. And then, of course, I talked about the regulatory design needs to evolve to allow more time of day tariff differentiation, a higher fixed cost in the grid tariff structure, more ancillary services provision, because of which hopefully the business cases for the end consumers can develop and evolve. And finally, there is the safety risk, which still remains a bit of a concern for the end user. So with that, I'll just quickly talk about my conclusion and assessment of the market. Without a doubt, it's a very high growth potential. All the market factors and parameters are moving in the right direction. But what we need more than anything else is policy stability and visibility. That is the number one demand of the investors and consumers today. We need more affordable financing. And I think we've seen a little bit of innovation in the industry by more NBFCs coming up, more developers offering hybrid financing solutions. And I think we need a little bit more of that. We need more customer segments to be covered for the market to realize its potential. And finally, I think consumer education and quality assurance are going to be very, very critical, particularly for small consumers. So with that, I end my presentation. And thank you very much for listening to me. And I'll be happy to take any questions later on. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Vinay ji, for this fantastic presentation. I think we'll skip the question part for the end, and I will just hand over directly to Joerg Gaebler from GIZ, which is demonstrating a solution which might be feasible for the Indian market today already. So yeah, excited to get to know more about the PV port concept.
Yeah, namaskar, namaste to India from Leipzig, a town in East Central Germany, which was heavily based on coal. And thanks to Dr. Glanzemann pointing out the exit on coal, could show you here in Leipzig, an exit from lignite coal, a very dirty form of coal, has happened. So glad to be here, and thanks to Tobias and thanks to Vinay for their great presentation on a global perspective on hybrid solutions using storage and solar, as well as how India could move into a country with a lot of potential. So I will share my screen now on the presentation I have, and then start the presentation. I have a lot of pictures, not too many. So I hope you can see now the slides. Solar hybrid, I call it, with storage. Make in India, a case study. It is really a case study of 2 years of GIZ work with a team of 12 people roughly, and trying to do something what we call today PV port and store, a standalone integrated system, which has both solar generation and electrical storage. The idea came on a plug-and-play solar system from the MNRE, our political partner in India, under these here 6 parameters, which we had to fulfill. Basically, have just a simple plug to connect the solar system to any outlet in a house. So you have self-consumption, self-feed-in, It has to be parallel to the grid, so we can take electricity from the grid, but also be independent. Doing power outages, which is very common in India, in many states, up to 10, 16 hours a day.
Sorry, Jörg, for interrupting. Could you please click on display settings on top? Jörg, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Click on display settings on top and swap the presenter view. Then everybody would be able to see it in full screen.
Like now? Is it better now, Tobias?
I think it's better now.
Yeah, it's better. It's better, Tobias.
Okay. Thank you, Tobias. Yeah, I only see myself, and I have a big screen in front of me, so I apologize. So we had these parameters to fulfill. So UPS, meaning the system takes over the critical load in the house. No export to the grid, so there is no regulation necessary for a battery or solar system feeding into the grid when, for instance, maintenance is happening on the grid. Peak shaving as a DISCOM utility to help with peak loads. And also be under 3 kilowatt size, so to obtain the subsidies currently called phase 2 with a maximum of 40%. So we did that. We developed the system. This is a 2-year-old development here. What you see, 6 panels, a structure which allows the panels just to slide in. Then we have benches. These benches are incorporating all the electronics, so standalone. Including the batteries in the benches, and the benches also become and work as dead load. I will come into the details a little bit further, but this is the system, how it looks. 5 versions of the system are currently available in India. To the left, on the left top, is a system without benches and microinverter technology, and then 4 other systems have different versions of batteries up to 5 kilowatt hours of storage, and we are combining here lead acid and lithium ion. Again, all standardized and tested. Current status quo of the system development is 2 things. Number 1, we are going into a field test series with DISCOMs in Delhi and in Gujarat. The ownership in terms of the development is with GIZ, but under us, we are glad to have NICE, the National Institute of Solar Energy, participating both in the work with the DISCOMs, but also making sure that the current vendors selected are maintaining a very high standard in quality, and then communicate also directly with the end consumers. The second phase we are now undergoing is each state, Delhi and Gujarat, will receive 400 systems out of a tender for a larger field test series, but these systems are also part of these rooftop tenders in Gujarat and in Delhi, so people can actually buy the system. Buying the system, we have developed a platform. We call it PV Portal. The website is shown here. It's a single place for ordering a system, for processing the order, for paying for it, for contacting an installer. Here we also have contracted several hundred so-called Surya Mitras, the in India educated solar elite, with currently 60,000 of them in a database available almost in every state. Each one is assigned a PV port once the order is placed on this PV port portal. So we have, let's see, a certain form of traceability from the vendor, from the component, all the way to the end user installation. And again, there is no DISCOM interconnection necessary for this standardized system, because most of the DISCOMs will pre-approve it. Currently only 6 DISCOMs have pre-approved it. Now a little bit of the history for some engineers maybe here in the audience. It's now a little technical, but it's important to show how the system evolved and why it looks the way it looks. So PV port we put into a engineering firm in Germany, actually 2 engineering firms, started working on it, and we realized that India has very strong winds. So up to 200 kilometers an hour, we sometimes see, and the solar system sitting on a roof needs to withstand these high loads, which also require, if you have winds that high, a lot of dead load. So meaning the weight on the system, which is holding the system on the roof. So in this case here, the yellow numbering here, 1,500, shows 1.5 tons of load being on the system to hold it down. Now we did some wind tunnel simulations with different configurations and then ended up with the shape we currently have, east-west. So one side of the panels facing to the east of the sun and the other to the west of the sun. In the sum, it's the same generation in India because, as Tobias pointed out, we have almost 365 sunny days. So here the dead load is below 500 kilogram. We just needed something to hold it down. We made also the structure very resilient, very resistant against any kind of deformation up to the numbers you see here. A TÜV certificate was obtained also in India. And the system comes with not even 24 different parts or part categories. So it can be set up. I heard last week in the first rollout of field tests that we have done it with 3 people under 40 minutes, 40 minutes. So it follows the little IKEA principle, one tool for all, and it's doable. Here are the dimensions, 2.6 meters by 2.2 meters on the ground, and it is roughly 2.5 meters tall. And as I mentioned, these benches, they have several functions, but one is very important because these benches can hold water, 250 liters each side. In total, 1 ton of water can be used to keep these systems down. Electronics are part of each bench, from the batteries, from lead acid, many of them, to just a few lithium ion. 5 kilowatt hours of storage capacity, very easy maintenance. You just pull out the drawer if something has to be fixed and then close it again. IP65, so full water resistance is given as well. And most important for regions with a lot of soiling, because India may have a lot of sun, 365 days. It has also a lot of dust coming from the Sahara, and the dust makes these panels underperform. So here we have an integrated sprinkler system, which has been developed by a German firm, Gardena, which can be used fully automated to clean these panels and have always full functionality. Some applications beyond just using a rooftop here is it's a solar system which can integrate the entire family, and you can use outdoor spaces, roof spaces. You can use it for promotional activities. Yes, last year, November 2nd, doing a summit, Chancellor Merkel did pay us attention to the solar system and called it an energy pavilion. So we kept our PV port as a logo, but energy pavilion also is nice. I also now would like to skip to the next and last technical part, the digitization process here, which is possible, also pointed out by Tobias, to make it a fully integrated part of an auxiliary system, if you will. We are testing now the first systems. This is a slide from a PV port in the field. You can see red, yellow or orange and blue. The red is the consumption of the household, private household. It is only a daily consumption. Then the solar load or the solar generation throughout the day. And the blue curve is actually the behavior of the battery, following a routine here. And the message is it can discharge when the highest load, for instance, ACs in the night come on. The battery can displace or disperse the electricity into the grid, fully independent from a regulation. There is some automation possible with modern hybrid inverters. The other step we have taken is to see how the electricity, for instance, in communication with the PV port in a household can be metered. So we have IoT, a smart energy meter from a smart startup or small and smart startup in India, integrated. And we are seeing the different patterns where the electricity goes and when it goes, and have aligned the inverter of the PV port in such a way that this can be controlled by the PV port, and we basically load and charge the battery according to the actual load in the household. So that is also an app-based device here, which allows everybody to have remote access to the system. Further to any PV port, only rooftop solutions, PV port now is being developed as an off-grid version, or a version which can be installed anywhere, from a park to a bus or a train station. That is a request we have from the Ministry of Railroad to look into railroad or bus stations. And also it can be a nice place just to gather, have some shade and charge batteries or laptops and work on it. So it can be installed and placed everywhere because it holds 1 ton of water in it. Last slide, cost. To the left on the top is the actual cost we currently have with vendors based in India. On the right is the cost structure for each model we are trying to foresee, which is also coordinated with REI. The 40% here, a subsidy currently under phase 2 is not on the entire system or on the entire cost, but it's up to 60,000 rupees, which is also confirmed. And we have a very strong desire as lithium-ion batteries come down to make the system even more affordable in India. And as Tobias pointed out, one of the drivers are costs. So this cost reduction effort here will take some time, but is foreseen as we are progressing with our development. That's it. Thank you very much. I will end here, and also I open for question.
Yes, thank you very much, Joerg and Vinay. So I think, would have a couple of minutes for some questions or discussions. Dr. Glaneman from government of Germany, you had seen, I think, some optimistic views on what's possible in the Indian market or what's happening worldwide. You have heard about, I would say, a more like a critical or realistic approach from Bridge to India in terms of where India actually stands today, and that there's a lot of homework which still can be done. And on the other hand, listening to Joerg Gaebler, who actually is proposing a system to the Indian market, which could actually deployed today. So any thoughts from your side, from government of Germany?
Well, I mean, I can, so first of all, thank you very much for your contributions. They were really very interesting and gave me new insights. So I believe, I mean, that it's always the case with new technologies that they need some time to actually become profitable and competitive in the market and then actually take off. All I can say is that the storage solutions are badly needed. As you explained, Tobias, in India, the storage solution can provide the key solution to providing energy at night or in the evening. And basically, this storage solutions need only to be short-term solutions and not long-term, like for weeks or days, weeks, and maybe even months, as in Germany. So I believe that India can really very much profit from these technologies that store energy. So I believe we can be always pessimistic that it takes several years and we have to wait for these technologies, or we actively promote them so that they can become soon a profitable solution and can actually take off in the market. And as soon as they are competitive, I believe that they can replace all these diesel solutions in India quite quickly. And this is really needed. But so I believe, I mean, we were also, not we, but I would say critics were also very pessimistic about the takeoff of renewables in Germany several years ago. And now we see that they have taken off far more quickly than we actually thought. And now they are competitive. They're even cheaper. So the solar PVs are cheaper in India than new coal. So I mean, we can be pessimistic, of course, as always, but I believe that there is some hope that storage solutions will take off far more quickly than we may think today. So just as in the case with renewables. So I'm just like you, Tobias. I'm more optimistic than maybe other people.
Wow.
Thank you very much, Dr. Glaneman. I was requested by the organizers, Informa UVM of REI Expo, to actually close the session. So thank you very much for your closing remarks for all of you who are interested in the presentations. I highly recommend to visit the YouTube channel of REI Expo. So I have seen that the first videos are being made available already to actually recap what has been presented. I also recommend to visit the website of energyforum.in, where you actually see what's going on in the next days. For example, the World Energy Storage Day is coming up, hosted by the Indian Energy Storage Alliance, which IGEF holds an MOU with. So you're kindly invited to actually visit this link. I think if you register till today or tomorrow is the deadline, are free of cost until 5th of September. So that would be a chance for you to actually register for the World Energy Storage Day. And else we are looking forward to more events coming up in the future, organized also by Informa Markets. So thank you very much for your time, and I hope you got some new insights. Thanking again Government of Germany, Ministry for Economic Affairs and Energy, as well as the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, Government of India, for having made this possible, for having requested us to dig deeper into this topic. Thank you very much, Mr. Rustagi, for having provided a realistic picture from Bridge to India's view on the Indian market development. And thank you to GIZ, Joerg, Gaebler G, for giving us a glimpse of actually what is possible or might be possible today. Looking forward to have thousands of these kinds of systems deployed maybe within the next 5 years. So yeah, thank you very much. Thanks to all of you, and hope to see you soon in the next session. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Winter, for your nice words. And I would like to thank all our panelists also who have given such insights onto global and Indian aspects. In fact, I recall this PV port was unveiled at one of our shows in Hyderabad, RenewX. So that was one of the right. So thank you so much for the session. And thank you so much, Dr. Nicole Glaneman, for your opening and the closing remarks. And thank you so much, Joerg, for putting the session so well. And it's always been a pleasure associated with the IGF and with German technocrats. Thank you. We look forward for your support and association further. Thanks, Vinay. Pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Femmelinge, thank you so much.